The sound knows the way. Imagine a stone, large, dense, motionless. Now imagine it floating, without being touched. No ropes, no machine, no visible force, just sound. But not just any sound. A whisper chanted with precision, as if the air around it gained enough density to support the impossible. For centuries, Egyptians kept this secret in unwritten myths. They said that Thoth, the scribe of the gods, could move what was fixed with the right word, spoken in the right rhythm. In Tibet, similar accounts described blocks suspended by chants and drums in geometric patterns. Today, science calls this acoustic levitation, and although current technology is still in its infancy, it confirms what was already intuited. Matter responds to vibration. In this episode, you'll understand why this isn't just a curiosity, but a principle that is still active, and how your own voice may be sustaining realities, even when everything seems out of control. Have you noticed how we're always trying to move the world with force? We force decisions, push words, pressure outcomes, as if everything only responds to impact. But there comes a moment, inevitable, when force no longer works. Reality seems to resist. And the more noise we make, the more everything remains still. That's when a silent suspicion arises. Maybe the world doesn't obey what is shouted. Maybe it responds to what is chanted with truth. In ancient times, there were those who knew this. They knew that reality isn't persuaded, it is resonated, and that, instead of pushing the world, it was possible to speak to it with precision, with intention, with aligned vibration. This idea is not lost. It lives in small gestures, in the silence that precedes an important speech, in the calm that comes before a real change, in the tone of voice that turns a simple yes into a turning point. In this video, you will rediscover that power. Not the power of the word that convinces, but the one that reorganizes, because sound doesn't need to be loud to be heard by the universe. It just needs to be at the right frequency. Humanity has never spoken so much, but maybe it has never vibrated so little. We live surrounded by sounds, but almost none of them have direction. They are words thrown into the void, repeated without presence, without coherence, without vibrational weight. The problem is not the noise. It is the loss of the creative verb. In ancient cultures, sound was ritual. It was a tool. It was a code. Thoth was not just a scribe. He was the one who knew what to say and when to say it, because he understood that the world doesn't hear what we say. It hears the vibrational state from which the speech emerges. Today, that ability has been diluted. Words have been emptied, and with that, we lost the invisible compass that aligned mind, body, and matter. No wonder many feel that their lives are stuck. It's as if they're trying to move mountains with shallow speeches, as if the universe had stopped listening. But the truth is deeper. The universe never stopped responding. We are the ones who forgot how to emit what it understands. That is the friction point. As long as you express yourself only with external words, reality will continue to obey the old frequencies that you don't even realize you're emitting. What's missing isn't more content. It's resonance. It's a reconnection with the sound that comes from within and rebuilds the invisible architecture of everything around you. The key is not to speak more, it's to vibrate differently. Ethan spent 4 decades working with sound. He was an audio engineer, a specialist in filtering noise and polishing frequencies. He listened with precision, but he no longer heard anything. Upon retiring, he rented an isolated warehouse in the mountains of Vermont. He brought with him only a laptop, 2 microphones, an analog keyboard, and a pair of customized speakers. He didn't want to compose. He wanted to find out if silence still had something to say. For weeks, he recorded inaudible frequencies. He tested sine tones between 23 and 25 kilohertz. Everything seemed predictable, until, on a cold night, something trembled. It was a smooth stone resting on a cloth in the center of the room. No wind, no interference. Just a subtle vibration, like an echo coming from inside the stone itself. Ethan adjusted the frequency. 24.8 kilohertz. The stone vibrated again. On the seventh day, it moved 2 millimeters. That same night, he wrote, "It's not the sound that moves. It's what the sound reveals. And if it reveals, it's because something in me already knew." The next day, he stopped recording. He began to listen. Ethan had always lived surrounded by sound. An audio engineer for over 40 years, he spent his life tuning frequencies, calibrating waves, cleaning up noise. But upon retiring, he realized there was a sound he had never heard, the one born from silence. He moved to a remote cabin in the mountains of Vermont. He brought only his old analog keyboard, 2 modified speakers, a condenser microphone, and a frequency generator. He didn't want to create music. He wanted to find the frequency that no one else could hear. For weeks, he recorded inaudible patterns, -23, 24, even 25 kilohertz. At first, everything was technical, predictable, until one winter night, something unexpected happened. In the center of the room was a stone, smooth, heavy, motionless. It began to vibrate, nothing intense, just a contained tremor, as if something inside it was responding to a forgotten call. Ethan adjusted the generator, 24.8 kilohertz. The vibration increased. On the seventh day of repetition, the stone moved. 2 millimeters. No touch, no wind, no trick. He didn't smile. He wasn't startled. He just wrote in his notebook, "It's not the sound that moves, it's what the sound finds, and when it finds, it remembers." After that, Ethan turned off the equipment and began to listen to what had only vibrated inside before. When you think of sound, you might think of music or speech, but sound is much more than language or melody. It is an invisible structural force, an organizing matrix that operates even before something takes shape. Science calls this cymatics, the study of shapes produced by sound frequencies. It was Ernst Chladni in the 18th century who first demonstrated this. He covered metal plates with sand and, by vibrating them with a violin bow, watched the matter reorganize into perfect geometric patterns. These figures were not random. They were frequency maps, sound manifesting as form. More recently, John Stuart Reid advanced this science with the seismoscope, an instrument that reveals how sound waves organize liquids into highly complex and harmonic structures. What once seemed invisible gained image. Vibration became tangible. And with that, an ancient truth was reaffirmed. Sound is capable of shaping matter. But vibration doesn't act only in the physical world. In Egyptian, Tibetan, and Hebrew traditions, sacred chanting was not a metaphor. It was a tool. Each sound carried a specific purpose. It wasn't about speaking loudly or repeating magic words. It was about finding the exact tone, the coherent vibration that activated the invisible field around. When two opposing sounds meet, as in experiments from the University of Bristol in 2015, they can generate a balance point in space. This point, known as an acoustic node, can support physical objects in mid-air. This is what we call acoustic levitation, a modern proof of what the ancients knew through symbolic language. Dr. Asier Marzo, a researcher at the Public University of Navarra, demonstrated how simple speakers, correctly positioned, can keep particles suspended between columns of air. Matter floats, not by force, but by harmonic resonance. When we speak of Thoth, we speak of an archetype who knew this, who knew that words in a pure vibrational state do not describe, they project. Who knew it wasn't the sound that ruled the stone. It was the sound that reminded the stone of its original lightness. And if the universe responds to frequencies, if matter bends before the right vibration, what might your own voice be building right now without you realizing it? Perhaps much more than meets the eye. True levitation doesn't happen outside. It happens within. It's not the stone that floats. It's consciousness that rises to a state where weight no longer makes sense. And this is where everything changes. The sound that moves is not the one that comes from the throat. It's the one that arises from an internal point of full coherence between intention, emotion, and presence. When you speak from that state, there is no effort, there is response. The universe doesn't need to be convinced. It only needs to recognize the source, frequency, the vibration that carries truth without the need for proof. This is the secret that Thoth preserved. Words, to him, were not means of communication. They were tools of vibrational organization. With them, he aligned what was chaotic, healed what was dissonant, and moved what seemed impossible to move, not by the power of the word, but by the harmony of the one who spoke it. That same harmony still exists. It's not in formulas or spells, but in your ability to vibrate with pure intention, in the tone you use with yourself, in the frequency of your choices, in the way you express yourself when no one is listening but the field is still feeling. The revelation is simple, yet revolutionary. Matter obeys vibration, and vibration obeys consciousness. From this point on, you are no longer someone who speaks. You are someone who emits structures. And when the sound that comes from you stops repeating and starts creating, reality begins to levitate toward you. As symbolic as it may sound, the concept of moving matter with sound does not belong solely to the realm of myth. It is part of a growing field of experimental science, and, surprisingly, many modern foundations directly align with ancient practices. The first systematic record of how sound generates form came from German physicist Ernst Chladni in the 18th century. He scattered sand over metal plates and, by rubbing them with a violin bow, observed the grains forming specific geometric patterns. Each frequency produced a distinct shape, revealing that sound vibration organizes matter. In the 20th century, Swiss researcher Hans Jenny expanded this idea with the term cymatics, demonstrating how simple sounds could create living mandalas in liquids, pastes, and loose particles. These patterns didn't arise randomly. They were visible expressions of invisible frequency. Today, British researcher John Stuart Reid, with his instrument called the cymoscope, is able to visualize sound in real time. His work shows how sound waves shape liquid surfaces with near mathematical precision, suggesting that sound is a form of vibrational sculpture. The patterns that emerge are very similar to structures found in nature: shells, flowers, cells, and galaxies. These experiments provide concrete support for the ancient idea that the universe is governed by frequency. But science didn't stop there. In 2015, the University of Bristol developed an acoustic levitation system, in which opposing ultrasonic waves create stable pressure zones in the air. These invisible bubbles are capable of supporting small objects, literally suspended in the void. This principle is replicable, observable, and doesn't rely on tricks. It's physics in action. Spanish scientist Dr. Garcia Marzo from the Public University of Navarra made this technology even more accessible. He created a portable acoustic levitation system using simple speakers. Today, anyone can experience this phenomenon on a small scale, sustaining a styrofoam sphere between fields of invisible sound. Now observe what this means. Matter doesn't float by magic. It responds to harmony. And when we look back, we realize that many ancient traditions had already intuited this. In ancient Egypt, priests spoke of words of power, which were not merely understood by the intellect, but resonated within the structure of reality. The god Thoth was the master of this vibrational language. To him, naming something was not just describing it, it was giving it vibrational existence. In Tibet, documented accounts by explorers such as Henry Kielsen describe monks moving stone blocks using ceremonial drums and trumpets, positioned at exact angles in front of structures. Science has not proven the phenomenon, but the acoustic patterns described coincide with principles now being studied in laboratories. The geometry of sound hasn't changed. Our awareness of it has. That's why this episode is not just a spiritual narrative. It is a bridge between myth and method, between symbol and structure, between what always seemed magical and what is finally beginning to be understood as the scientific language of Thoth. The science of vibration that structures reality even before it exists. But this knowledge is not bound by time. It doesn't belong only to the past or to mythology. It can be lived now. It's in the tone with which you breathe before reacting, in the way your thoughts echo when no one else is listening, in the presence you emanate even in silence. This is not an idea to be admired. It's an invitation to be practiced. Healing speech begins before the voice. It is born in the alignment between what you feel, believe, and choose to sustain through your actions. Thoth didn't encode sounds to impress. He chanted frequencies to reorder what had been distorted. That ability still pulses within anyone who learns to listen. Before speaking, as Pythagoras, master of universal harmony, once wrote, "The order of the world is measured by sonic proportions. So pause, feel, recalibrate, because what you transmit, even without words, is already shaping what lies ahead. And when your inner emission aligns with the order you wish to see, the chaos around you simply loses command." This was the second episode of the series Arcanos de Thoth, The Writings of Eternity. If you felt something reorganize inside you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the upcoming chapters. If you're watching this video in the future, the other episodes might already be available. Look for the series playlist on the channel page and dive deep into forgotten knowledge. In the comments, write the phrase, "My word has form." That will be your vibrational seal and our sign that you are in tune with the frequency of transformation. Share this episode with someone whose presence deserves to vibrate at a higher frequency. And click on the screen to watch more content that doesn't just inform, it resonates. Because where there is sound with truth, the invisible does not remain untouched.